New CEO's son undermined me, so I sold our $420 million patent portfolio to competitors. But before I share my story, please take a minute of your precious time to support our channel. Your support and love keeps us going. They pegged me as a smile and a skirt. They imagined I'd sign whatever was slid across the glossy table and vanish from the boardroom like a shadow no one would miss. But when you underestimate the black woman who built the engine under your company's hood, the invoice comes due, with interest. My name is Jada Monroe, 34, Southside born and raised, and the youngest systems architect Nexulus Labs had ever trusted to steer a flagship platform. Not that anyone seemed to care about that anymore. What too many saw when I presented to the board was not the person who had designed the lattice that kept their servers from melting, but how I looked while doing it. That morning, the skyline over Chicago was a grid of steel and rain, Lake Michigan the color of slate. I set my coffee on my desk, badge still warm from the scanner, and caught a glint of motion in our old CEO's office. A tall man in a razor-cut suit leaned in the window's reflection like he owned the horizon. "That's Damian Price," murmured Deshaun Miller, my senior dev and the one person here I trusted without reservation. New CEO's son. Word is Leonard is grooming him to run ops. Damian's gaze landed on me, slow, appraising, proprietary. He crossed the floor with the trot of a man who'd never been told no. "Jada Monroe," he said, stopping too close enough for his cologne to announce its own promotion. "I've been studying the org chart. You're the systems architecture lead." "Correct," I answered, clipped and neutral. "Interesting. I imagined someone more technical looking." Deshaun's shoulders tightened. I felt the familiar heat crawl at my throat, then cooled it with practice. "My appearance," I said evenly, "doesn't correlate with my ability to architect the AI infrastructure that currently produces 82% of Nexulus revenue." He tasted the words like a sommelier. "Right. The Orion Initiative. I'll be taking a special interest there. We're planning some restructuring." Restructuring, the corporate euphemism that eats jobs for breakfast. The Orion stack is built on 7 proprietary frameworks I invented, I reminded him. "Any changes must clear formal review. I'm sure we'll figure it out." He flicked his hand, dismissal masquerading as charm. "Smart, pretty women shouldn't stress the business side. Just make the demo sing. That's what you're here for, isn't it?" Keyboards around us stopped clicking. I let a small, surgical smile bloom. "Mr. Price, I hold 7 patents on Orion's core mechanics. I authored the foundational code. I constructed the neural topology your father is betting the company on. When you say make the demos sing, I assume you mean the $620 million Series D valuation those pretty little algorithms earned last quarter." Color crawled into his cheeks. "If you'll excuse me," I added, turning toward my terminal, "I have real work to do, the kind that requires more than a surname and a black card." He leaned in so close his breath fanned my ear. "Be careful how you talk to me. Things are changing, and I have a long memory." When he stalked off, Deshaun exhaled. "Bad news, Jay." I kept my eyes on the display, while my instincts throbbed like a smoke alarm. Men like Damian didn't compete. They removed obstacles. I opened my patent vault, all 7 filings, and mirrored every design note, commit history, and provenance trail to encrypted personal drives. Paranoid? No. Prepared. 3 weeks later, I learned what restructuring meant in the Price dialect. It was close to midnight on a Thursday. I was nursing cold coffee and debugging a thorny concurrency bug when a strange pattern flashed across Orion's access logs. Someone was pawing at the core architecture through a back door I hadn't built. My fingers flew. The trail pointed to Tyler Green, a junior engineer who didn't have clearance anywhere near the kernel. I pulled up East Annex security cam feeds. There he was, hunched over a keyboard like a trespasser after hours. Standing behind him, arms folded, was Damian. Every second on my screen became evidence. Which repos they touched, which layers they duplicated, which modules they siphoned. It wasn't a peek. It was an extraction, a blueprint lift of the framework I had spent years inventing. At 8 a.m., I was summoned to an urgent strategy session. The conference room was a terrarium of dark suits and tight smiles. Leonard Price at the head, Damien to his right, a cluster of directors, and a couple of attorneys who blinked like owls. Jada, Leonard said, voice syrupy. We're accelerating Orion's debut. Market windows narrowing. Damien slid a document across the table. We've identified risky dependencies. Nexulus needs complete ownership of all critical components. I scanned the paper. A technology transfer agreement demanding I assign all patent rights to Nexulus for a one-time payment of $35,000. The laugh stuck in my throat like a bone. These patents were developed independently before and outside my employment. They're licensed to Nexulus under explicit terms. That's been the arrangement for 3 years. Arrangements evolve, Leonard said smoothly. We're unveiling a $1.6 billion platform. We can't be at the mercy of outside claims. Outside. I let the word roll, dry as dust. I architect the system. There's nothing outside about it. Damien's jaw shifted. We've been preparing alternatives, redundancies, so we're not dependent on your participation. The puzzle pieces clicked. The late-night scrape, the junior engineer, the sudden urgency. Not alternatives, a derivative. Reverse engineering. A theft with a thesaurus. That would be patent infringement, I said. My counsel will enjoy the overtime. Silence puckered the room. Leonard's smile thinned. Is that a threat, Ms. Monroe? A fact, I replied. Orion runs on my protected inventions. You can't ship without them, and you won't replicate them without violating federal law. Damien slapped the table. You forget you're an employee. And you forget employment is not retroactive ownership of my pre-existing IP. I stood. I've licensed my work to Nexulus on favorable terms. If you're now attempting to steal it. No one's stealing, Leonard cut in. We're protecting an investment. What they were protecting was their plan to cut me out. But I had the footage, the logs, the provenance, the timestamps. Receipts for days. I'll be reviewing this with counsel, I said, heading for the door. The launch is in 6 weeks, Damien called after me. We'll need this resolved. I stepped into the hall and dialed Rochelle Mears, my intellectual property attorney. Ro, they're coercing a transfer while cloning my code. Proof, she asked. I sent the screen captures, access logs, and cam stills. Her answer came granite hard. Crystal, if they push Orion live on your stack without proper licensing, we're looking at a minimum of $380 million in damages. I'll also fast-track continuation and improvement filings, lock the perimeter, so tight a mouse can't breathe. Do it, I said. And Ro, I'm done playing defense. The next 72 hours were a study in elegant warfare. I mirrored everything, code, emails, design memos, whiteboard photos, into 3 off-site encrypted vaults, one lodged with Rochelle. At 3 a.m. Monday, I pushed a quiet update to Orion's core, an authentication lattice only I could fully navigate. Nothing broke. The lights all stayed green. But the house now had locks of my design, and I held the only master key. By mid-morning, Tyler Green barreled into my doorway, sweat stippling his lip. I can't access half the modules. Security hardening, I said, stirring my coffee. Given the unauthorized activity last Thursday around 11:47 p.m., I let the timestamp hang. He went chalk white. Damn, Mr. Price told me. I don't care what Damien told you, I said softly. You breached restricted systems without authorization. That's a federal crime. Walk away now and keep your mouth shut, and I won't escalate. He fled. At lunch, Rochelle called. Filings submitted. Every variation, every tweak, every potential derivative, buttoned up. Perfect. Which is when Damien shouldered through my door, Fury doing a poor job of being composure. What did you do? He demanded. I secured my intellectual property, I said. Per policy. You're sabotaging the launch. I'm protecting my rights. I tapped my screen and brought up our license. Nexulus has full usage if it honors the agreement. Attempts to replicate or expropriate my work void those terms. You have no idea who you're messing with, he breathed. I do, I replied. A nepotism appointment who thinks an MBA writes code. I slid a folder across the desk. That's a cease and desist. It goes public 48 hours before launch unless Nexulus pays market rate. $420 million for exclusive rights or $42 million annually non-exclusive. His laugh sounded hollow. You're delusional. I held up my phone. The security footage paused on his profile beside Tyler at the terminal. One tap, and this lands with the FBI's cybercrime unit. A second tap, and every tech desk in America hears how Nexulus's breakthrough rests on stolen IP. The color drained from his face. I'm reasonable, I said. Pay for what you use, respect ownership, and we win together. Or try me. He crushed the letter in his fist. This isn't over. After he slammed the door, Deshawn leaned in. Security's taking bets you won't be here tomorrow. What are the odds? 3-1 against. Put $1,000 on me, I said, and opened a fresh document labeled Playbook. By Monday, the prices moved from velvet threats to sharpened teeth. Word came down for a friendly chat on the top floor, Nexulus's glass aquarium, where the carpets swallow your footsteps and the skyline looks like a trophy. I stepped into the conference room and clocked the setup. Leonard Price at the head, Damien at his right, 3 board members, 2 outside attorneys, and a poised woman in an eggshell suit who smelled like crisis PR. The Price family was black business royalty on the trade mag covers, all Chicago polish and legacy, and right now every eye in that lineage was measuring me. Jada, please, Leonard said, gesturing to a lone chair at the far end, classic isolation theater. I'll stand, I replied. And I'll need my legal counsel present for formal discussions. This is informal, he smiled. The smile never reached his eyes. We're all on the same team. Strange team, I said lightly. Someone from this building tried to crawl into my home network last night. I tapped my phone, beaming logs to the room's display. Source IP resolves to Nexulus. Exact timestamp here. Would you like me to send this to the board archive or straight to federal cybercrime? Chairs shifted. The PR woman's pen paused. Leonard's mask thinned to paper. What do you want, Ms. Monroe? He asked. What I've always wanted, I said. Fair compensation for my intellectual property, professional respect, and an end to your son's harassment. Damien's veneer cracked. Harassment? You're the one holding an entire company hostage. I'm asserting legal rights. Difference matters. I moved to the table on my terms now. Orion sits on 7 patents I own outright. Without them, your showpiece is stage lights and fog. The demo's in 3 weeks. You can pay for legitimate licensing or explain to investors why your miracle goes mute. You wouldn't dare, Leonard said. Try me. The room fractured, murmurs in one corner, quick math in another. Finally board chair Alana Pierce, silver locks, South Shore stalwart, plenty of steel, cut the noise. State your terms. $420 million for exclusive rights, I said. Or $42 million per year non-exclusive. Below market given performance benchmarks. That's extortion, Damien snapped. That's business. And if we refuse? Leonard asked. Breach of the existing license is already documented, I said. I revoke it and take my portfolio elsewhere. I've had inbound interest. I did not elaborate that it was a teaser call, not a signed sheet. Alana glanced between father and son. Give us the room, Ms. Monroe. You have 48 hours, I said at the door. After that, my cease and desist goes public. The next day turned petty fast. Whispers about my termination. My keycard mysteriously dead, briefly, my email sulking. Cute. At 2 in the afternoon, I gathered the engineering org in the war room. I want full documentation on every subsystem, architecture notes, interfaces, edge cases by tomorrow, I said. Log, timestamp, mirror. And flag in bold red anywhere my patents are necessary for continuity. Deshawn lifted a brow. Insurance. Insurance, I said. If I sneeze and security says I no longer work here, you'll need a playbook to keep Orion breathing. By dusk, Damien tried a different angle. He waited in the parking structure, posted up beside a matte SUV. I spotted the camera in the corner, dark lens, little LED conspicuously off. My phone recorded anyway. I don't walk to my car without receipts. You think you're clever, he hissed, stepping into my path. But we can make sure no one hires you in this town. Is that a threat? It's a promise. Take the modest payout and keep your career. I stepped closer until he had to look down to hold my gaze. Damien, you have the wrong picture in your head. I am the product. My mind, my frameworks, my filings. You're just the son of the holding company. You'll regret this. The only regret I have is not calling your bluff sooner. I got in my car, shut the door on his scowl, and drove home to finish a thing I'd been building since the first, interesting, not very technical-looking comment. By Friday, my safeguard lattice was complete, a dual-auth sequence that required my credential plus a time-locked key to make any deep structural changes. Nothing interfered with day-to-day ops. The demo still sang. But if someone tried to bypass me, the system would defend itself before it let a thief set the kitchen on fire. Saturday brought the panic email, CCing half the investor list. For the success of Orion, we require your full cooperation by Monday morning. Corporate 4. Surrender. I forwarded it to Rochelle. Prep the C&D for Monday. Window closes at noon. Also, Rochelle said when she called, voice fizzing with news, Celestial Vector reached out, Nexilus's loudest rival. Your continuations pinged their radar. They want to talk Monday. Ballpark $360 million exclusive plus a senior architecture role. Put the call on my public calendar, I said. If Nexulus wanted to monitor me, I'd let them read the headline. Sunday, I backed up everything again. Triplicate redundancy with paranoid labeling your grandma would admire. Near midnight, an unknown number texted. Last chance. Take the original offer or lose everything. D. I screenshotted it and dropped it into a folder titled Harassment, Price Dynasty. Then I set my alarm and slept like a brick. Monday dawned with security escorting me straight to the top floor. The room was fuller this time, directors, counsel, 2 major investors on wall screens. Leonard spoke first, voice smooth as a bespoke tie. We've worked hard this weekend. We'll offer $8 million for the patents and 2% of Orion Net for 5 years. I did the math. Maybe 35 to 40 million on rosy projections. Pennies for the engine. No, I said. Damien burst. Ungrateful. Damien. Alana cut in, steel glinting. Enough. You can move forward without me, I said pleasantly. Let me show you what that looks like. I connected my laptop and loaded Orion's dependency graph. Everything powered by my patents glowed red. The screen looked like a circulatory diagram after a sprint. Remove red, I said, clicking. The display went nearly blank. Now you have branding and a wish. An investor cleared his throat on the monitor. Is this accurate? Ask your CTO, I said, turning to Leonard. Oh, wait. You replaced her with an ops lieutenant to make room for your son. Voices rose. Counsel conferred. Damien paced furrows into the carpet. Alana raised her palm for quiet. Your terms? Unchanged, I said. 420 exclusive. And starting today, the number escalates 10 million per calendar day you delay. If you prefer non-exclusive, it's 42 million annually with audit rights and stronger protections. That's blackmail, Damien spat. That's the clock, I said. At 2 o'clock I have Celestial Vector on my calendar. They like exclusives. You planned this, Leonard said softly. I plan to be treated fairly, I said. You planned a lift and rebrand. I reached the door, then paused. Also, about that black sedan outside my house. Paperwork's in motion. Damien, we'll let a judge decide whether it's informal monitoring. The hallway felt brighter on the way out. My phone buzzed, Rochelle again. CND drafted. Ready when you say go. Load it, I wrote back. We're past warnings. At 1:20 p.m., 35 minutes before my rival call, Leonard and Damien swept into my office with their lead counsel in tow. For 120, Leonard said, jaw set. Exclusive. We'll pay. The number ticked to 4:30 at noon, I said, swiveling my screen to the wall clock. That was in the email. Tomorrow it's 4:40. Damien's fist thumped my desk. This is insanity. Stop, Leonard snapped, and for the first time, I saw the weariness under the dynasty. He turned to counsel. We need docs. I have a purchase template from Rochelle, I said, sliding a folder across. Audit rights, board observation privileges, no gag clauses, and an explicit oversight period where I maintain technical stewardship for 12 months to stabilize the platform. Non-negotiable. My phone rang on cue. Celestial Vector. Leonard arched a brow. Answer it. I did. This is Monroe. Ms. Monroe, Aaron Cho from Celestial Vector, the voice said. We're prepared to offer 340 exclusive, plus 15 on signature and a chief architect slot. We can wire by close of business. I asked for a formal term sheet. Already emailed, Aaron said. Pleasure, Ms. Monroe. When I hung up, the room's silence had weighed. Leonard's pen hovered, then landed. 4:30, he said, signing. And he swallowed. Damien is removed from any role touching Orion or your team. Father and son froze in a taut glance that felt like a decade folding. Damien stormed out, heat in his wake. By 6 that evening, Rochelle texted a screenshot. Wire confirmed, $430 million. The floor buzzed with a voltage I could feel through the glass. Folks didn't know the number, but they read the weather. The launch was safe, and the woman who kept the lights green had just changed the gravity. Jay, Deshawn said, head poking into my office, grin stretching wide. Heard Damien got reassigned. Europe, rumor says. Bon voyage, I said, checking Orion's heartbeat. All systems steady. My safeguard lattice coexisted just fine with the new ownership. The papers gave Nexulus what it wanted. Legal rights to use my engine. They also gave me what I demanded. Protection, oversight, respect. In writing, notarized, wired. From the mezzanine, the city glittered. South Side grit to downtown shine. I'd always loved this view. I loved it more knowing I hadn't begged for my chair. I'd built the table. The Orion launch went live with fireworks. By Tuesday morning, Chicago news anchors called it the most important product release of the decade. The stock surged 28% before lunch. Screens across the office glowed emerald. Our dashboard stable, our pipelines humming. I stood behind glass in the server suite at midnight, watching the final checks. The system was lean, sharp, untouchable. I had made sure of that. Nexulus had wired me $430 million, but the real currency was control. My safeguards guaranteed no one could bypass me without triggering alarms. But power tempts the greedy, and greed doesn't sleep. The meltdown. 3 hours into launch day euphoria, alerts exploded on every monitor. Red cascades where green had been. Authentication failures. Database lockouts. Connection drops. Deshawn sprinted from his desk. Jada, it's a domino collapse. I traced the logs. Someone had tried to overwrite my time-locked keys, the very lattice meant to defend Orion's bones. The system responded as designed, shut down before letting a thief slip in. My phone rang. Leonard, voice ragged. What did you do? We've got clients live-streaming demos and the system is choking. I didn't do anything, I said coolly. Check your logs. Someone tried to erase my permissions at 12:10. When I hurried to the server room, security blocked me. Sorry, Ms. Monroe. You've been restricted. By whose order? Mr. Damien Price. My blood iced. He's supposed to be in Berlin. Conference room, the guard muttered. The accusation. Inside the war room, chaos reigned. Board members shouting over one another. Investors yelling through video feeds, and in the middle, Damien, Ty Askew, eyes wild like a man running on fumes. He must have taken a red eye. There, he barked, fingers stabbing the air. She sabotaged Orion. She built a kill switch. I stepped forward, calm as ice. It's not a kill switch. It's a security response. The system locked down after you tried to ghost my credentials. Damien's smirk faltered. Check the logs, I said. They'll show cloned authentication tokens, generated under your admin profile. Orion knows the difference between genuine and counterfeit. That's why it shut you out. Can you fix it? Asked Alana Pierce, eyes boring into me. Yes. Restore my access, revoke Damien's tampering, and give me 30 minutes. Do it, Leonard barked. No, Damien shouted. This is exactly what she wants, control. She's making us dependent on her. Damien, Leonard thundered. Fortune 500 CEOs are watching their demos burn. Fix it now. The IT director restored my credentials. My fingers blurred across the terminal. Undoing Damien's mess felt like untangling barbed wire, but the framework obeyed its maker. 27 minutes later, green spread across the dashboards like dawn after a storm. The room exhaled. A smattering of applause. Alana leaned forward. Thank you, Ms. Monroe. The reckoning. Damien wasn't finished. He jabbed a finger at me. See? Proof she's holding us hostage. Next time she decides to throw a tantrum. There won't be a next time. I cut him off. Unless you keep tampering. Every attempt you've made to cut me out nearly killed this company. Maybe it's time you accept some people are irreplaceable. Damien barked a bitter laugh. Irreplaceable? We'll see. No, Leonard said, voice like gravel. He turned on his son. We're done. Clear your office. What? You cost us $430 million with your arrogance. You nearly destroyed a $1 billion launch with your ego. You're finished here, Damien. The silence afterward was nuclear. Damien searched the room for allies. None came. He stormed out. The offer. Leonard sagged back into his chair, gray in the light. Jada, the board will back me. The Chief Innovation Officer seat is yours. Full board vote. $4 million salary plus equity. You've earned it. I looked at the dashboards, humming alive again. At my team, faces pressed to glass, watching the woman they'd seen underestimated stand taller than the dynasty. I'll think about it, I said, walking out. Deshawn caught me in the hall, grinning wide. Jay, you just cut the Price family's crown prince off at the knees. You've got everything, money, title, respect. Do I asked, glancing back at the boardroom where Leonard was already smoothing stories for investors. Or did I just teach them to build a better cage? That night, Orion purred back to life across the globe. Stock recovered, climbing higher than ever. Analysts wrote hymns about its architecture. Tech blogs whispered about my showdown with the dynasty. But I didn't celebrate. I kept sketching something else in my notebook, ideas for an engine beyond Orion. A system no dynasty could ever own. Because power borrowed is never safe. And I was done borrowing. 3 weeks after the chaos, Orion was the darling of Wall Street. Nexilus's stock climbed like ivy on steel, headlines praised its brilliance, and investors lined up to throw money at the dynasty. And yet, every morning my inbox pinged with fresh incentives. Leonard Price wasn't just dangling the CIO contract anymore. He sweetened it, $5 million base, bigger equity, even a custom electric SUV with my name etched into the console. But the same truth sang louder each day. They didn't value me. Only the cage they could keep me in. The resignation. One gray Thursday, I walked into Leonard's office. He grinned like a man expecting a signature. Finally ready to sign? He asked, sliding the contract across. I pushed it back. Actually, I'm here to resign. His smile collapsed. You can't be serious. Effective immediately. HR already has the paperwork. But Orion will run fine. I documented everything, trained the team, and per our agreement, I'll provide remote consulting for the remainder of the year. You'll survive. The question is whether you'll thrive. He rose, pacing. Is this about money? Name your number. I shook my head. It's not money, Leonard. It's vision. You and the board see me as a necessary evil to contain. I'm done being underestimated. His eyes narrowed. So, you're joining Celestial Vector? I smiled. No. I'm founding my own firm. The revelation. He froze. Your own company? Yes. My own AI shop. Built on technology beyond Orion. The patents you bought are already yesterday's news compared to what I'm building now. His face drained, then flushed red. That would be legal. I cut in. Developed after hours on my own equipment, with my own resources. Rochelle verified every line. I showed him the headline already scheduled to go live. Former Nexulus architect launches bold new AI startup with $55 million seed round. $55 million, he whispered. Where? A funny thing happens when you prove you can build billion-dollar products. Doors open. Investors line up. And this time, I'm the one writing the rules. He slumped into his chair. Jada, please. Nexulus needs you. No, Leonard. Nexulus needed to respect me. You had your chance. The Exodus. I paused at the door. Oh, and 3 of your best engineers already signed with me. Deshawn starts Monday. You're poaching. I'm offering what you never did. Recognition, equity, and a chance to build free from theft and ego. I walked out past the skyline I once thought was the summit of my career. Out to the parking lot where my own silver Tesla waited. Not a gift from a dynasty, but something I'd bought outright with my first patent payout. My phone buzzed nonstop. Deshawn. Can't wait to start, boss. Rochelle. Incorporation papers filed. You're officially a CEO. Aaron Cho, Celestial Vector, congrats on the launch. Let's discuss partnership. But the sweetest ping came at 4:20 p.m. a news alert. Nexulus stock dips 19% as architect of Orion resigns. By the end of the week, 3 major clients called me directly, asking about my new venture. 2 VC firms offered to lead a Series A. And somewhere in a quiet press release, the Price dynasty announced Damien was pursuing new opportunities abroad. Translation: exiled. The rise. 6 months later, my company's valuation hit $1.1 billion. We had 7 Fortune 500 contracts, half of them former Nexulus clients. The system I'd built made Orion look like an abacus compared to a quantum computer. Leonard sent an email on the anniversary of my first clash with Damien. You won. Congratulations. I didn't reply. Reflection. Late at night, from my new office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, I thought about Damien's first look at me, dismissive, predatory, certain I'd fold. He thought my beauty made me weak, my gender made me expendable, my work made me his inheritance. He thought wrong. And the $430 million lesson I forced his family to pay? That was just the tuition fee. Because when you try to cage the goose that lays the golden eggs, don't be surprised when she burns down the farm and builds her own empire from the ashes. My name is Jada Monroe, and this is how I destroyed the dynasty that tried to erase me, not through revenge, but by refusing to accept anything less than my worth. 6 months after I walked away from Nexulus, my startup had become the new gravitational center of the industry. Tech outlets called us the Black-owned AI powerhouse redefining the market. Investors compared our breakthroughs to the dawn of cloud computing. Clients who once bowed to the Price dynasty were now cutting their checks to me. And Damien? Last I heard, he was slouched in some mid-level consultant role at a small Phoenix firm. His LinkedIn updates came like funeral notices, short, pitiful, desperate. The golden sun of a dynasty reduced to an afterthought. Empire from ashes. By our 1-year anniversary, my company's valuation crossed $1.2 billion. The new platform we rolled out made Orion look like a child's puzzle compared to a chess grandmaster. Our contracts stretched across finance, healthcare, and defense. Even government agencies were calling. Leonard sent another email. Jada, if there's ever a way to work together again, my door is open. I didn't answer that one either. Some doors are best left closed. Instead, I poured my energy into something Leonard's board never understood, building people. My engineers had equity. My interns had mentors. My managers had freedom. We weren't just writing code. We were writing futures. Reflection. Sometimes, late at night in my corner office with its view over the Chicago skyline, I'd think back to that first day when Damien Price looked at me like decoration. Like I was furniture. Like my patents were his inheritance. He thought I was replaceable. He thought I'd fold under pressure. He thought my worth was tied to how I looked in a boardroom. He thought wrong. That $430 million lesson he and his father paid was only the beginning. What I built after walking away, that was the real revenge. The closing. So when people ask me how I destroyed a dynasty, I tell them the truth. I didn't do it with anger. I didn't do it with sabotage. I did it with something simpler, by knowing my worth and refusing to sign it away for scraps. The best revenge isn't served cold. It's served at exactly the right temperature, with airtight contracts, airtight patents, and a view from the top they'll never touch again. My name is Jada Monroe. I'm not the woman they dismissed in a pencil skirt. I'm the woman who built an empire from the fire they tried to burn me with. And to every person listening, never let anyone tell you you're just a pretty face, just a cog, just an employee. You hold the cards. The moment you believe
that's
that,
how I turned their attempt to erase me into the spark that built my empire.
Thank you for hearing my story.
They thought I would bow.
Now
They thought I would break.
Where
but
are you
instead I
listening from?
walked away with
And when was
everything
the
they tried
moment
to
you
steal
realized your worth?
and more.
Drop
My
it below.
story isn't just
Subscribe,
about corporate
and
warfare.
let's build this conversation
It's about refusing
together.
to let anyone define your value but you. If my journey resonates with you, here's what I ask. Share this story with someone who needs a reminder never to settle. Comment below with a moment when you had to stand your ground and claim what was rightfully yours. Subscribe and follow so you never miss more stories about courage, power, and knowing your worth. Because in the end, the lesson is simple. When they underestimate you, don't argue. Show them what happens when you play to win.